Good afternoon, folks. Again, we will skip through this as fast as I can and hopefully will be coherent in my delivery. So again, just framing this from an international perspective, and OECD in 2009 talked about the global pressures on public services and governments, talking about the more demanding citizen and customer, increasing the social complexity and diversity, overstretched resources, as we're all experiencing. Again, demographic changes. We heard from Michael Foley yesterday morning, Ani again talking about it this afternoon, the older population. And again, the change in ratio. By 2040, it's going to be a ratio of 2 to 1, 2 workers to 1 retired person, versus 1960 when it was 20 to 1. So quite a dramatic shift in less than 1 century. From universal design, it's very involved or included within both European, international, and within our own national standards bodies. And again, it talks about how to maximize the number of people who can readily use product building or services which may be achieved. And then they talk about at 3 distinct levels, designing products that can be used by most without any modification. Again, by including adaptable devices. And finally, there may be occasions where you need to do a specific one-off solution for some individuals. So again, looking at the tiered approach, and again, how, I suppose, key element that we would see on progressing, I suppose, a changing society out there is having standards that are agreed not only at a national level but also at a European level, and maybe something that we can discuss as a cost initiative. I look at a universal design from 4 Ps, from a philosophical perspective, nothing to the depth that Michelle talked about earlier on, but enabling all people to participate in a society that celebrates, and I think that's critical work, human difference, as Shakespeare talks about. It is normal to be different. So again, that we celebrate difference and to interact with the environment to the best of their ability. Principles that Ani talked about, there are 7 key principles, universal design, which goes from equitable use, that everybody is included, right down to looking at the tolerance for error. Again, simplicity and intuitive use being critical elements or principles of universal design, or any great design that we talk about. We have adopted, it's called the Double Diamond design process from the UK, and we have made it Irish with some Celtic knots included. So we talk about the discovery, define, develop and deliver phases within the design process and universal design. So very similar to Ani's process earlier on. And within that, we see kind of critical elements, the creativity, critical thinking at the very beginning when we're talking about the discovery and defining stages. But again, when we come to the development and the delivery, creativity and critical thinking are core elements on how to actually bring new innovative product services that will actually be used by most people. Again, a key term, personalization through participation. I'm getting in 2 Ps on this one. So that it is personalized. Again, a myth about universal design, it's one size fits all. That is not the case. It is how do we design better that we're including as many people as possible. The iPhone, as I see, and the iPads, as I see around here, again, have inbuilt the personalization for people to be able to participate in this meeting here today. Again, looking at specific user groups and what are their particular needs. So user segmentation, awareness and responsivity to changing user needs. So people's needs change as we change from this morning. You couldn't make it back here as several people were delighted or excited to be involved, etc. Personalising services through close government-citizen relations. I think this is going to be critical, and I think this could be something that cost action could bring to the table. How do we get closer links between public services and the citizen? Again, that they're personalised and they're proactive. Proactive in that the user and the diverse users are involved, co-creators we were talking yesterday. So they're part of that co-creation, co-production of that service or that product. And again, personalisation through intermediation. You will see from a couple of examples of successful projects we've completed in the last couple of months that intermediation was critical, because if you get a diverse group of users in a room, they will have different needs. So somebody with a visual impairment will have different needs to someone with a hearing difficulty. A very simple one is an elevator, as in research that we were doing, that elevators we all take. For someone who's deaf, they don't actually hear the elevator. They may feel a movement, but all you have to do is put a little glass partition in the elevator door and people can actually see the physical movement. Something very simple to design in, and it makes a dramatic difference for somebody who may feel that they're in a space and not quite sure what's happening. So again, very simple things for a person with a visual impairment. The not having a full mirror in front of them because they're not quite sure if they're walking right through the elevator. So very simple things that can be, done in consultation when you bring the diverse users around the same table. And again, they realise, all right, I didn't realise that was a difficulty for you to be able to operate an elevator, taking just as a simple example. Again, our president, and I looked down at Dick Gleeson, I have been looking for this comment to be verified, Dick, that he made at a presentation about 2 years ago where our president, just as he was elected, he talked about pouring social life into our buildings. So again, buildings are not just inanimate objects. They are made because it's the people who live and interact and work in the environment. So please verify that later for me, Dick, please. So again, in the business world, and Ani touched on this, I'll just use the example of Steve Jobs, where he talks about design is not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. So I think that is, we can take from there. Again, Accenture done significant work where they looked at 4,000 companies in 2009, and one of the distinguishing features between very successful companies who were mainly French and German, which was quite surprising in the IT sector, was because they had the leaders had a powerful drive to understand but also please the people who buy their products. So again, the user being a core element to this. Thomas Watson, who is the founding member of IBM, again talks about good design is good business. And again, they have shown through their own research that the return on investment is talking about 10 to 100 euro for every euro invested in the design phase and the discovery at the early phases. And we have clearly shown that design, when it doesn't work, can be very frustrating for the vast majority of the population. Work done by Philips in 2004 talk about over 70% of the population are either frustrated, have difficulty, or are totally excluded from the vast majority of the designs that have been put together. In our own world of universal design, one of the founding members, our grandmothers, Elaine Ostrov, talks about how we design, delight, and to inspire and lift the human spirit when we talk about universal design. And she would clearly say that universal design is best design. She said it, not me. Again, this is built into our United Nations General Obligation number 4, talks about governments to undertake, promote research development to universally designed goods, services, equipment and facilities. Council of Europe in 2009 came out with a key publication full participation through universal design. And again talks about a roadmap how to promote and implement universal design right across services, environments, and as a key innovation tool for Europe. An image here of New York and a new design on how to, I suppose, compete with Empire State Building, this is an elevator that they're talking about building in the next couple of years. But again, how it is intersected or intertwined with the various buildings around it. So again, we're not talking about standalone structures. These need to be networked, integrated, quality environment and services. Again, Maria Bay Sands in Singapore, we may have a meeting there, Mark, if you can arrange it, where they have now built the gardens, and you can easily walk between the buildings right on the rooftop. So again, how do you integrate, and using Dick's terms yesterday, livability and livelihood all being integrated into the one area, being critical. So our own centre looks at standards, education and awareness, and again it's looking at the diversity of stakeholders from young children right through to older people and everybody in between. And the key areas we look at: built, environment, products and ICT. And some of our work in 2012 and into 2013, we have created National Universal Design Guidelines for digital TV equipment and services, and looking at the lived experience of people using the web, which is very different to a lot of the questionnaires that have been out there, where we actually went and interviewed and got people to demonstrate how they use the web as part of that interview process. And what they said and what they did were totally different. So again, if we're talking about going out into the field, talking to people, it's not just a clipboard questionnaire, it is actually engaging with them, demonstrating how are they doing things, because it can be quite dramatically different to what they say and how they do. Again, using a design assessment tool that we developed with one of the major hospitals here in Dublin, and looking at technology and how it has been used by older people. Some of the work in the built environment, universal design building guidelines, and we're just completing universal design homes set of national guidelines. And again, looking at the area between buildings, shared spaces, surfaces, and work that successfully completed by Trinity House, who were the successful tenderers in this work. At standards level, we've engaged with the energy suppliers and produced a national standard looking specifically at how they engage with the customer. That was very successful in late 2011 and 12, and in the last couple of weeks we've just published a new national standard, engaging again with all the businesses such as the Hotel Federations, the Restaurant Federation, the Vintners Federation, being the association looking or the overseeing pubs in Ireland, and looked at 4 key aspects: electronic-based communication, written, telephone, face-to-face communication. But part of that was developing 4 sets or toolkits, the how to deliver on that standard. And these again were developed with the users not in mind, but as part of the writing up. They were critically involved in each stage of both the standard and in the production of the toolkits. Again, looking at it from a European perspective, there is a significant amount of mandates that will now be coming to fruition over the lifetime of this project. Mandate 376, which is about ICT, 371 looking at the tourism, and again from an urban perspective, domestic appliances, 392, 420 is the built environment, and a new one just started that we have been nominated as the lead on 473, which is looking at universal design in the manufacturing process. So these very specifically looking at the whole procurement policy for governments or regional governments, and I think they will have a significant impact, and hopefully we could have an impact from the cost programme on how these are developed and delivered and implemented over the next 3 to 4 years. Mark and Ani talked about the 24-hour design challenge. We see them as a huge awareness programme, and we've conducted ones in 09, 10 and 11, and starting one in late November going into spring 2014. That isn't a 24-hour period, it is the process leading up to a 24-hour. So it's not... and again, I suppose a critical part in leading out on this project, looking at information sharing. How do we share information? And I would share with you probably the innovative thinking around universal design and learning, particularly out of a significant US organisation called CAST, where it looked at the brain networks, talked about the recognition network, the strategic network and effective network, and broke it into a set of guidelines, three areas: the representation, expression and engagement, and how you can use, how you generate material that people can understand it and engage, how they can be represented within the various working groups, and themselves looking at how they can express, be it using very physical means, be it in a workshop, or again very creative, be it using online blogging, etc., etc. So critical thing, and the guy I'm quoting here is Robert Reich, who would be a significant guru looking at the area of public management and in a democratic society. This is 1990, and he talks about the role of the citizen-orientated public servant, which I am one, and talks about to provide the public with an alternate vision of what is desirable and possible, to stimulate discussion about them, to provoke re-examination of premises and values, and thus to broaden the range of potential responses and deepen society's understanding of itself. The EU Commissioner was here in Ireland, and she talks about, we have now resolved the DNA of the human, but we're a long way from resolving the DNA of society, which I think is a key element and something that I think we should be conscious of within the work over the next 4 years. So finishing with the blogger Rolling Rains, who is very focused in the area of tourism, but talks about universal design is a roadmap to lifelong social participation by children, people with disabilities, older people, but it also creates and satisfies a new customer base. Finally, it allows for business models that are not at once economically sustainable but are also socially beneficial. So on that note, we thank you for your time. Thank you for Michelle and for Ani for coming to Dublin to join in this presentation. So back to you, Mark.